What if I told you the Middle Ages had its own Taylor Swift? Not with stadium tours or viral heartbreak songs, but with visions from the heavens, a choir of haunting melodies, and the admiration of popes, emperors, and even the cosmos itself. Meet Hildegard von Bingen, a nun, a mystic, a composer. Her songs are still performed today. Her writings, they covered everything from healing herbs to the secrets of the stars, and in a world ruled by men, she didn't just find a voice, she became the voice. So, who was this woman, and why do some call her the Taylor Swift of the Middle Ages? Fame in the Middle Ages, it didn't come with magazine covers. No flashing cameras, no record deals, but make no mistake, people did get famous, and not just kings or warriors. In rare, extraordinary cases, a woman could rise above the noise. And Hildegard, she didn't just rise. She echoed through cathedrals. Back then, music wasn't just art, it was prayer, power, a sacred experience. Her songs weren't played on Spotify, they were sung by choirs in candlelit stone chapels, carried on voices like wind through stained glass. And her ideas, handwritten in ornate Latin manuscripts, spread across monasteries, kingdoms, even the Vatican. Being a celebrity meant your words traveled, your name sparked whispers. And in Hildegard's case, her voice could shake the souls of empires. Imagine that, a woman in robes, no stage, no spotlight, yet still unforgettable. So how did this unforgettable woman come to be? She was just 8 years old when her family gave her to the church, not out of cruelty, but tradition. And behind those convent walls, something unusual began. Hildegard started having visions, bright lights, celestial voices, mysteries so vivid, she believed they came from God himself. At first, she kept them secret. Who would believe a young girl, locked away from the world? But those visions wouldn't stop. They burned through her silence and turned into something powerful. Music, not just any music, but melodies unlike anything the church had heard. Soaring, strange, hypnotic, like they came from somewhere higher. Her songs weren't made to please an audience. They were meant to move the heavens. And in time, her voice, both earthly and divine, became impossible to ignore. Hildegard didn't just compose music, she built entire worlds with sound. Over 70 songs, each one a spiritual journey. Her melodies twisted and soared, breaking the rigid rules of Gregorian chant. It was as if she was hearing a music no one else could, but she didn't stop at harmony. She wrote books, thick with knowledge centuries ahead of her time, on plants, on healing, on how emotions affect the body. Her mind moved between theology and science like a comet across the sky. And then she went even further. She invented her own language, a mystical code, part prayer, part poetry, like she was speaking directly to the divine, or maybe from the divine. For Hildegard, creation was sacred, whether through a melody, a manuscript, or a vision. Everything she touched became a message. In an age where women were expected to stay silent, Hildegard wrote letters that thundered to emperors. To popes, she didn't beg. She advised, she warned. Her words carried the weight of fire and scripture, and the world listened. Not just because of what she said, but because of who she was, a woman who claimed her visions were divine truth and backed it up with wisdom no man could deny. She debated theology with bishops, called out corruption in the church, and when she wanted to create a new convent, she didn't ask permission. She built it, a sanctuary of her own, where women studied, sang, and led. She wasn't just a nun, she was a force of nature, and somehow, still humble enough to believe her power came from somewhere higher. Imagine this, a glowing cathedral, 1,000 candles flickering, and Hildegard's voice, echoing through the stone. That's not fantasy. That's happening right now. Her music is still performed in concerts, in films, in Spotify playlists labeled Sacred Vibes. But it's not just the sound that lives on, it's her spirit. Feminists quote her, scientists admire her curiosity, spiritual seekers follow her visions like a map. If she were alive today, would she be writing symphonies on a synth, streaming mystical TED Talks from a monastery in Iceland, or maybe she'd be headlining indie festivals under the name Saint Hilda? One thing's certain, her voice would still rise above the noise, timeless, and just strange enough to make the world stop and listen. While kings built empires of stone, she built symphonies of light. Others wrote for power. She wrote for the universe. Her voice didn't fade with the centuries. It became part of them. And it makes you wonder how many other voices like hers were lost in the fog of history. Waiting to be heard again? Drop a comment. Who do you think was the true star forgotten by time? And if Hildegard's music still echoes after 900 years, maybe some messages are meant to last forever.